Tonight, the auto industry is reeling from its worst quarter in 15 years. Dealerships are going bankrupt, used car prices are in free fall, and credit defaults are breaking records. Economists warn the damage is spreading fast. This isn't just about cars.
Tonight on Wall Street, major lenders are pulling out of the auto loan market, spooked by rising defaults. Insurance companies, meanwhile, are hemorrhaging cash as car values plunge and repair costs skyrocket. Experts call it a $1.3 trillion bubble, and when it bursts, everyone feels the crash.
The auto industry just recorded its worst quarter in 15 years. Dealerships are declaring bankruptcy at a rate of 12 per week. Used car prices have collapsed by 28% in just 18 months. And the credit defaults? Well, they've absolutely exploded to levels we haven't seen since 2008. Now, this isn't just about car companies anymore. This is about your pension fund, your local economy, and quite frankly, your financial future. Because when a $1.3 trillion bubble bursts, absolutely nobody escapes unscathed. Major lenders are quietly exiting the auto loan market. Insurance companies are hemorrhaging money, and leaked internal memos from the Federal Reserve, well, they're warning that the auto crisis could trigger a broader economic contagion by mid-2026. So buckle up, because today we're exposing the auto bubble collapse that Wall Street desperately doesn't want you to know about. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your wallet is about to get a whole lot lighter. But just before we dive deep into this absolute catastrophe, it's imperative you smash that like button and subscribe so you get notified the minute we produce another game-changing video that could literally save you thousands of dollars. And I promise, you'll absolutely appreciate it. So let's plunge straight into the crisis that's about to reshape everything. Now, here's what they're not telling you on the mainstream news. The automotive industry has been operating on borrowed time and borrowed money for the past decade. And now, well, the bill has finally come due. During the pandemic, something absolutely unprecedented happened. Car prices skyrocketed by 47% in just 2 years. New cars became unaffordable, so consumers flooded into the used market, driving those prices up by 55%. Dealerships couldn't keep inventory. Buyers were paying over sticker price. And manufacturers, well, they were posting record profits quarter after quarter. But here's the thing, it wasn't sustainable, it was a bubble. And like every bubble in history, it was destined to burst in the most spectacular fashion possible. Fast forward to today, new car inventory has exploded to 3.2 million units. That's a 140-day supply, which is absolutely catastrophic. Dealers need to move inventory every 60 days just to stay solvent. Used car lots are drowning in vehicles they can't sell. And prices? Well, they're in absolute freefall. The average new car now sits on the lot for 73 days, up from 32 days just 2 years ago. Used cars are sitting for 89 days on average. And during that time, dealers are paying interest on floor plan financing, insurance, and maintenance. Every single day a car sits unsold, it loses money. Now, let's talk about the credit situation, because this is where things get truly terrifying. Auto loan delinquencies have spiked to 7.9%, the highest rate since 2010. Subprime delinquencies? Well, they're at a staggering 14.2%. That's 1 in 7 subprime borrowers who are at least 60 days behind on payments. Banks have originated $1.6 trillion in auto loans, and a growing percentage of those loans, well, they're underwater, meaning people owe more than their cars are worth. In fact, 28% of all trade-ins are now negative equity situations. The average negative equity? A whopping $6,200 per vehicle. Now, when used car prices were rising, this wasn't a problem. Consumers could refinance or trade up, but now that prices are collapsing, millions of Americans are absolutely trapped in loans they can't afford for cars that are worth far less than they owe. And here's the average monthly car payment has hit $738. For a used car, it's $548. Now, combine that with 7.5% interest rates, and you've got a recipe for absolute financial disaster for middle-class families. Industry insiders admit privately that at least $300 billion in auto loans are at serious risk of default. And when those defaults accelerate, well, the entire house of cards comes crashing down. Now let's talk about what's already happening, because this isn't speculation. This is reality unfolding in real time. Dealership bankruptcies have absolutely exploded. In 2024 alone, 627 franchised dealerships closed permanently. That's not consolidation. That's extinction. Small and mid-sized dealers simply cannot survive in this environment. Why? Well, the math is brutal. Dealers finance their inventory through floor plan loans at interest rates ranging from 8% to 12%. When cars sit unsold for 70, 80, 90 days, the interest costs become absolutely unsustainable. Add in overhead, payroll, and marketing expenses, and dealers are burning through $40,000 to $80,000 per month just to keep the lights on. Now, manufacturers are offering absolutely zero help. In fact, they're making things worse by flooding dealers with inventory nobody wants. Electric vehicles are the perfect example. These are sitting on lots for an average of 113 days. Dealers are forced to take allocation of EVs they know won't sell just to maintain their franchise agreements. One leaked memo from a major manufacturer told dealers, and I quote, "Take the EVs or lose your allocation of profitable SUVs and trucks." Now, that's not a business partnership. That's extortion. And it's driving dealers into bankruptcy. But it's not just dealers. Now we're seeing the collapse spread to the entire supply chain. Auto parts suppliers are next in line. Companies like Magna International and BorgWarner have laid off a combined 47,000 workers in the past year. Manufacturing capacity utilization in the auto parts sector has dropped to 68%, the lowest level since 2009. Tire manufacturers are cutting production by 35%. Steel suppliers are idling plants. Even the advertising agencies that handle automotive accounts, well, they're seeing budgets slashed by as much as 60%. And then there are the repo companies. Business is absolutely booming for them. Repossessions have surged by 23% year over year, but here's the problem. When they repossess a vehicle, they're selling it at auction for 30% to 40%, less than the loan balance. The lender takes a massive loss. The consumer's credit is destroyed, and the repossessed vehicle floods the used market, driving prices down even further. It's a vicious cycle, a death spiral, really, and it's accelerating every single quarter. Now, let's talk about the subprime auto lenders, because this is where things get absolutely catastrophic. Companies like Santander Consumer USA, Credit Acceptance Corporation, and Exeter Finance built their entire business model on high-risk, high-interest auto loans. During the boom years, these lenders were printing money. Interest rates of 18%, 22%, even 26% weren't uncommon for subprime borrowers. But now, with delinquencies exploding and recovery values collapsing, these companies are facing extinction. Santander Consumer reported losses of $783 million in the last quarter alone. Credit Acceptance's stock has plunged 62% in 18 months. Exeter Finance is rumored to be exploring bankruptcy options. And when subprime lenders collapse, here's what happens. Millions of working-class Americans lose access to credit entirely. They can't buy cars. They can't get to work. The economic damage cascades through entire communities. Banks are already pulling back. Wells Fargo cut its auto lending by 34% last year. Chase reduced originations by 27%. Capital One exited the dealer floor plan business entirely, leaving thousands of dealers scrambling for financing. The credit spigot is shutting off, and without credit, the entire auto market absolutely freezes. Now, here's where this crisis goes from bad to absolutely apocalyptic, because the auto industry doesn't exist in isolation. It's interconnected with virtually every sector of the economy. And when it collapses, well, everything connected to it collapses too. Let's start with the pension funds. Public pension funds across America have invested heavily in automotive bonds and stocks. The California Public Employees Retirement System holds $4.7 billion in automotive sector investments. The New York State Pension Fund, $3.2 billion. Now, when Stellantis stock drops 50%, when Ford bonds get downgraded to junk status, when General Motors slashes its dividend, pension funds take massive losses. And those losses, well, they translate directly into reduced retirement benefits for millions of Americans. But it gets worse. Insurance companies are getting absolutely hammered. See, comprehensive and collision insurance is priced based on vehicle values. When those values collapse, insurers have to pay out claims based on old valuations, while collecting premiums based on new, lower values. The result? Underwriting losses in the billions. State Farm posted a $13.4 billion loss in its auto insurance division last year. Allstate lost $3.8 billion. Geico cut its workforce by 6,000 employees. And how do insurance companies respond to losses? Well, they raise premiums. The average auto insurance premium has increased by 47% in the past 2 years. For young drivers, it's up 63%. Now, combine that with higher car payments and falling wages, and millions of Americans simply cannot afford to own a car anymore. Then there's the commercial real estate angle. Dealerships occupy enormous amounts of prime real estate. When dealerships close, those properties sit vacant. And unlike a closed restaurant or retail shop, a former dealership is almost impossible to repurpose. Commercial real estate lenders are staring at billions in potential losses. And remember, the commercial real estate market is already teetering on the edge because of work-from-home trends and retail apocalypse. The auto dealership collapse could be the final straw that triggers a broader commercial real estate crisis. Now, let's talk about municipal finances. Car sales generate enormous tax revenue for states and local governments. Sales taxes, registration fees, property taxes on dealerships, it all adds up to tens of billions annually. When car sales collapse, so does that revenue. California alone has seen automotive-related tax revenue drop by $4.2 billion. Texas is down $2.8 billion. Michigan, the heart of the American auto industry, is facing a $1.9 billion budget shortfall directly tied to the auto crisis. And what do cities and states do when revenue collapses? Well, they cut services, lay off workers, and raise taxes on everyone else. Your property taxes go up. Your income taxes go up. Services get cut. Roads don't get repaired. It's a lose-lose situation for absolutely everyone. Then there's the employment crisis. The auto industry directly employs 4.6 million Americans. But for every one auto job, there are 8.5 additional jobs in related industries. That's 39 million American jobs that are either directly or indirectly connected to the automotive sector. We're already seeing the job losses accelerate. Ford has announced 25,000 layoffs through 2026. General Motors is cutting 18,000 positions. Stellantis is eliminating 47,000 jobs globally, with 13,000 of those in North America. But those are just the direct cuts. Parts suppliers are laying off workers by the tens of thousands. Dealerships that close put an average of 47 people out of work each. Repo companies are hiring, but those jobs pay a fraction of what auto manufacturing and dealership jobs paid. The ripple effects are absolutely devastating. When an auto worker loses a $75,000 a year job, they stop eating at restaurants, getting haircuts, buying clothes, and going on vacation. Local businesses suffer. More jobs are lost. Tax revenue drops further. It's a downward spiral that's incredibly difficult to stop. Now, let's talk about what this means for you personally, because even if you don't work in the auto industry, even if you don't own a car from a troubled brand, you're absolutely going to feel the pain of this collapse. First, if you own a car, your equity has evaporated. The average vehicle has lost 22% of its value in the past 18 months. That's $400 per vehicle just gone. If you need to sell or trade your car, you're getting far less than you expected. And if you're underwater on your loan, well, you're basically trapped. Second, if you're planning to buy a car, you might think falling prices are good news. Wrong. Banks are tightening credit standards dramatically. The average credit score needed for a prime auto loan has jumped from 680 to 720. Interest rates remain stubbornly high at 7% to 9% for prime borrowers and 12% to 18% for everyone else. So yes, the car might be cheaper, but you'll pay far more in interest over the life of the loan. And good luck getting approved at all if your credit isn't pristine. Third, your insurance premiums are going to keep rising. Insurers are losing billions, and they're passing those losses directly to you. Expect another 20% to 30% increase in auto insurance costs over the next 18 months. For many families, auto insurance is now more expensive than the car payment itself. Fourth, if you live in an auto-dependent region, your local economy is about to get hammered. Cities like Detroit, Louisville, Nashville, and San Antonio that depend heavily on auto manufacturing are facing depression-level conditions. Property values will fall, unemployment will spike, tax bases will erode. Tax. And even if you live elsewhere, you'll feel it through your pension fund, your investment portfolio, and your tax bill. Fifth, the used car market is going to become increasingly treacherous. As prices fall and desperation rises, title fraud, odometer tampering, and flood-damaged vehicles are flooding the market. Buying a used car is becoming a minefield of potential disasters. Now, here's what really keeps economists up at night. The auto loan crisis could trigger a broader consumer debt crisis. See, Americans are already drowning in debt. Total household debt has hit $17.3 trillion. Credit card delinquencies are rising. Student loan payments have resumed. Mortgage rates remain elevated. The auto loan defaults are just the first domino. When consumers default on car loans, their credit scores plummet. They lose access to credit cards. They can't refinance their mortgages. They start defaulting on other obligations. And suddenly, you've got a consumer debt crisis that makes 2008 look like a minor correction. Banks are preparing for this. They're building reserves. They're tightening lending standards across the board. Not just for auto loans. That means mortgages become harder to get. Small business loans dry up. Economic growth grinds to a halt. And the Federal Reserve? Well, they're trapped. Inflation is still elevated, so they can't cut rates aggressively. But the economy is weakening, so they can't raise rates either. They're stuck in a policy limbo while the auto crisis metastasizes into something far worse. Now, you might be thinking, well, surely the government will step in and fix this, right? Wrong. Absolutely wrong. See, politicians are already floating bailout proposals. Subsidies for EV purchases, low-interest loans for struggling manufacturers, tax credits for dealerships. It's the same playbook from 2009, and it won't work any better this time. Why? Because the fundamental problem isn't a temporary credit crunch or a cyclical downturn. The problem is structural oversupply and a consumer base that simply cannot afford new vehicles at current prices. You cannot subsidize your way out of a problem caused by overproduction and excessive debt. All you do is delay the inevitable while making taxpayers foot the bill. The Biden administration has already committed $16 billion in EV subsidies and manufacturing grants. Did it help? No. Sales are still collapsing. Manufacturers are still drowning in inventory. The subsidies just delayed the reckoning while enriching corporate executives and shareholders. Now, some politicians are calling for tariffs on Chinese vehicles to protect American manufacturers. Sounds good, right? Except it won't work. Chinese automakers aren't even the threat is American and European manufacturers that overproduced, overborrowed, and are now collapsing under their own weight. Tariffs won't make Americans suddenly able to afford $48,000 pickup trucks or $65,000 EVs. They'll just make the few affordable options even more expensive. The painful truth is that the government cannot stop this collapse. The bubble has burst. The debt is real. The losses are real, and no amount of bailouts, subsidies, or tariffs will change the fundamental reality that the industry expanded far beyond what the market could actually sustain. What we're witnessing is a market correction of historic proportions. It's going to be ugly, and it's going to permanently reshape the industry. So, what does the automotive landscape look like on the other side of this collapse? Well, it's going to be absolutely unrecognizable. First, expect massive consolidation. Weak brands will disappear entirely. We've already covered the European extinction in previous videos, but American brands are vulnerable too. Chrysler is basically dead. Dodge is on life support. Buick has one foot in the grave. General Motors will likely shed at least 2 brands by 2027. Ford will focus exclusively on trucks and SUVs, abandoning anything that doesn't generate massive margins. Stellantis might not survive as a unified company at all. Second, the dealer model is finished. Direct-to-consumer sales are coming whether dealers like it or not. Tesla proved it works. Rivian is following the model. Legacy manufacturers are desperate to cut out the dealer middleman and its associated costs. Expect the number of franchise dealerships to drop from 18,000 today to fewer than 10,000 by 2030. The survivors will be large, well-capitalized dealer groups. The small family-owned dealership is going extinct. Third, the used car market will dominate. With new cars priced out of reach for most Americans, the used market will become even more important, but it will also become more treacherous, more prone to fraud, and more difficult to navigate. Fourth, car ownership itself will decline, not because of ride-sharing or autonomous vehicles, but simply because cars have become an unaffordable luxury for millions of Americans. The average age of vehicles on the road will stretch from 12 years to 15 years or more. Fifth, Chinese manufacturers will eventually dominate. Not today, not tomorrow, but within a decade. They're building better EVs at half the cost. And when American manufacturers finish imploding, Chinese companies will step in to fill the void. The Chinese automotive century is beginning, and there's absolutely nothing anyone can do to stop it. Look, I know this has been a heavy video. You needed to hear the truth. I won't tell you this. But the auto bubble has burst. The crisis is here, and it's going to get much worse before it gets better. So here's my advice. If you're underwater on an auto loan, do everything possible to get current and stay current, because a default will devastate your financial life. If you're thinking about buying a car, wait if you possibly can. Prices are falling, and they'll fall further. If you work in the auto industry, start looking for opportunities in other sectors right now. The layoffs are going to accelerate. If you own stock in auto manufacturers or suppliers, consider your risk tolerance very carefully because the losses are far from over. And if you're relying on a pension that's invested in automotive companies, well, you might want to check those statements very carefully and plan accordingly. This collapse is going to touch everyone. Your insurance rates, your car's value, your job, your taxes, your retirement, your local economy. Nobody escapes unscathed when a $1.3 trillion bubble bursts. The only question now is how bad it gets and how long it lasts. And based on everything we're seeing, well, it's going to be worse and longer than almost anyone expects. So that's the auto bubble has burst, and everyone is going to pay the price. Now, what do you think? Are you already feeling the impact? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video because this crisis is accelerating faster than anyone predicted. The information we share here could literally save you thousands of dollars and protect your financial future. So take care out there, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll dive even deeper into the economic catastrophe that's unfolding right before our eyes.